Hi. Like, hi, and get a Christmas ball. Welcome to the best thing you watched this week. Hopefully it is. It's the best thing we watched this week. Chris from Movies and Munchies, Ruben from the Ruby Tuesday. If it's your first time, thank you for joining us on the randomness of the best things that we watched, talking about the best things in movies, TV, whatever kind of is the thing that our googly eyes had a look at. That's what we're talking about. Also, in the only podcast section that's exclusive to podcasts, wherever you're listening to podcasts, we talk about the news and what we're looking forward to coming and any kind of stories you want to add in on there. Our Patreon, I'm very excited for this week. So if you want to join us, check the comment sections down below wherever you're watching this or listening to us. There'll be a link to our Patreon. And this week, we are doing posters, but posters, they're a little bit different. They're obscured. And we're going to have to see if the memory of the color palette that you can kind of see in the shape of them, whether we can guess each other what the movie posters is, what the title is. I've, of course, chosen obscure 1920 Brazilian posters for Chris.
Well, what I told Ruben is that I chose easy ones, or at least well-known ones, but what he doesn't know is that most of them are in Mandarin. And so these
fantastic. No, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. That's a good game. If it goes well, we may do it a couple of times. If you want to check out what we get up to on our Patreon, we've already got on each other's channels. We've got a couple of videos representing what we get up to. And I believe next week we're going to add another kind of free look at what it is you can get out of it. And it's a really fun one. So check out that next week. We had a lot of fun doing that one. But
yes,
we should get into it. We're going to start with the movie quiz.
Yes.
I didn't have anybody on my list, but Chris, I believe you might have had a couple.
Yeah. A couple of people did get it correct, but our first person to get all three of the quotes correct. Now, I'll give you the answers first. It's Heathers, Armageddon, and Coming to America. And I'm so thrilled that I got them all, too. Now, I didn't get them with the partial quote. Yeah, I was excited.
Nice.
Once I got the full quotes, I was like, oh, that changes what I thought it was. But now I think I do know what it was. And I turned out I was correct. So that's awesome. But All About Mill One is the YouTube username. Who was first to get all three of those. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Congratulations. Woo.
Yeah, that's cool.
Good job.
So we'll have, I don't know, who's going to be the next winner. Ruben, do you have some?
I do. I have new ones. Just a shout out again to Nostromo, who's been our leading champion for weeks on end. He's the guy to beat. And obviously, this week we have a new champion. So congratulations again. And I'm looking forward to what people say, because sometimes they say the most obscure opposite to what the film actually is. And that always makes me chuckle. But go ahead, give it a go. And if you do a really bad answer, we may even still say what your answer was just for the fun of it. Okay, Chris, are you ready?
I am ready. Well, as much as I can be.
Okay. 2 words.
Oh, no.
Mr. Bitey.
See, that sounds familiar.
Okay,
no, give me the whole thing.
It's not going to help, really.
Oh, okay.
Fuck you, Mr. Bitey.
No, that didn't help. That was...
And you've definitely seen it, and you do like the film, I think.
Okay. Yeah, it does not come to mind. So, okay.
I drink your something. I drink it up.
Yeah, to give that word, I think, really does give it away, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think it does, yeah.
Yeah.
Should I give it? Do people need it?
Yeah, go ahead and give it. Just out of...
Unless you... Yeah, okay. I drink your milkshake. I drink it up. Okay. Number 3, the final one. Naughty Vampire God.
No. What? No.
Okay. I'm going to be naughty. I'm going to be a naughty vampire god.
Well, that changed the direction I think I was going, but that didn't help at all.
Huh. Okay. I'll be interested to see who gets this. I've probably seen that film 8 or 9 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Do you think I've seen it?
Oh,
like
for
a bunch
sure.
of times?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how many
Okay.
times, but it's, yeah.
Okay.
It's a good one.
Well,
Yeah.
well, so I'm batting 30% out of this one because I know one of them. This first and the last, I don't know. But let us know. Put your guesses down in the comments, and we'll give the winner a shout out next week. Who's it going to be? I don't know. Let's see. All right. May I ask a question?
Depends on the question.
Well, I don't know. Yeah. Well. Okay. If you could change the sounds your body makes, so think like burp, fart, yawn, sneeze, whatever. What new sound effect would you replace the normal sounds of your body with?
That is such a good question. That's great. I really like that. Because I know offhand, I would really like to change my snoring because I'm overweight. I snore a lot. And whenever I get cold or let's talk about the atmosphere is giving us all the seedlings and then coming at your nose. And you take all of that to your bed. And then your wife is like, oh, why would he shut the hell up? So I would like to change that. But because you have to change it with a different sound and I can make it any sound I wanted, I'm guessing that's the question.
Yeah.
I could make it so much more annoying.
You went the complete opposite direction I thought.
No, yeah. I mean, if you're going to do it right. You could just have the most irritating, grinding noise sound, and you can't hear it because when you snore, you're like, I don't snore. What are you talking about? Is there proof? Have you recorded me? No. So I don't snore. However, it could be something like a yap from a dog, high-pitched yap that just yap, 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 instead of snoring. Yap, 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 yap.
I think you'd get murdered in your sleep.
I think I would. I don't think that would last long. Divorce.
See, I snore.
Might be a real option.
Totally. See, before you went the route you went, I was saying when you said snoring, it like, ooh, hey, I snore too. So I was like, you know what? I could replace my snoring with like white noise,
right?
Because that would be
that might actually help
pleasant.
the partner because you can, like the sound of the waves or the wind or rain. Imagine your nose goes. Would that be all the time though? So like you speak and then you breathe in. And anyway, I was going, and then I was.
Well, that would be just distracting,
really
wouldn't it?
Yeah, that person's weird.
Oh, see, I think if I could change, like if I changed my sneeze to like a foghorn,
right?
But one of those that is like earth shattering, like just soul shaking, where it has that bass to it that just travels through walls so that my neighbors could feel me sneeze. That would be.
How about the sound is changed to Morgan Freeman's voice narrating The Lord of the Rings? So when you go to sleep, instead of snoring, Morgan Freeman says, "And the hobbits, they ventured out. They were going on an adventure. Bilbo. He was precisely on time."
Would it continue where you left off, or does it start over every single night?
Depends if one's hell or one's heaven. If it's hell, just repeats the same intro. I never find out what happens.
Or your snoring could be what is it? The Rickroll song. You know. That would be murder, grounds for murder also, I think. And the person that committed that would probably totally get off because it would be like justifiable.
The judge would be like,
right there.
I don't know why we're here. You're fine.
Yeah. Next case.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. So let us know in the comments what, if you could change a body sound, what would you change it to? That has the potential to be just absurd and funny.
I think that's been my favorite question so far. It's funny.
Just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. So how about we dive into some of the best things that we watched this week?
Yeah.
Does that sound
I'm
good
just
to
gonna
you?
put my phone on airplane mode because I just remembered in the recording there's probably going to be, and I got to use it because I'm a little bit more prepared this week because I have it like all my lists and stuff. I sometimes feel unprepared. All right, so I've got a surprise for you, Chris.
Oh yeah, go for it.
The best thing that I watched this week is a movie you've been trying to get me to watch for ages, and I stuck it on and said, Chris says this is really good, especially considering last week we watched The Innocents, and we were like, why did we listen to Chris? And I was like, and Kirsten was like, are you sure? And then she started watching. It's like, I don't want to watch this again because there's a repeat. Yeah. Because it's a hard going start and you feel for the characters. But once you're in like 30 minutes into the film, man, I was just happy. I was just golden. It was just great. And I could see this being on my rewatch list because it's a feel good film, but it takes half an hour to get into it. Can you guess what it is, Chris?
Well, the one that immediately comes to mind with a hard start, like an emotional hard start, and then becomes like that is The Way Back.
Yeah, that's what we watched. That's the first time we've watched it.
Yes.
Good Lord, Sam Rockwell. I could just watch Sam Rockwell as this character all day long. He just knocks it out of the park. I want him to be my dad. Like, I love my dad, but like... He's a good role model. Like, he's the guy that doesn't have all things figured out, but he just, I guess he comes at life in the correct way. Compared to this other kid who's slightly autistic, I think that would be fair to say. He definitely has some learning disability. And he comes into this relationship with a broken relationship with his mother. His mother's got a new boyfriend who is a douchebag. No two ways about it. He plays enough of a good guy to get away with not being outed straight away, which is always what douchebags do, I guess. The cast in itself is fantastic. Toni Collette, my gosh, I just love her character. She plays that mom character perfectly. But once we get to the water park, I'm just like, I could watch sequel after sequel of this movie series just of them in the water park and coming of age stuff. Man, I loved it. It was so good. It was a good film.
I'm so happy you guys got to watch this. I mean, that's why it's like in my top 5 movies like of all time, because I watch it. Well, I'll watch it a couple of times a year. And it really is. I mean, the amount of humor that is in there, that, you know, some of it is ridiculous, which, you know, and that's okay. But then when it's mixed with the heartfelt moments, and I think these moments that Sam Rockwell delivers, they're touching, you know, and they're palpable, and yet they feel genuine in this conversation.
Very real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Oh, I'm so glad. Nice. See, okay, so I've redeemed myself with a recommendation there. So it's 50-50 now next time.
We'll see your next recommendation.
Oh, man. All right. Well, you know what's funny is the top of my list is a Sam Rockwell film.
Oh, amazing. Okay.
Yeah, it's See How They Run, which is a murder mystery that hit some theaters this week. I don't know how wide of a release it actually got. It's a whodunit. It's like a play within a play almost, because we have Sam Rockwell and Saoirse Ronan playing an inspector and a constable for the British police, and a murder has happened on the set of a play in West End, and the play is Agatha Christie's Mousetrap.
Ah.
Now, something that I didn't really know, and I only found out afterwards we looked it up, is that there is a clause that Agatha Christie's Mousetrap could not be published in a book form or story, like a written story, and then no film or anything, until it had stopped playing in the theater for 6 months.
Wow.
And And so, like, I think Agatha Christie was like, it'll be out in like 12 weeks. No big deal. So this started in like the 50s. And the first time that it actually stopped was in 2020 because of COVID. Like, it was forced to shut down. Yeah. And so it's, but that storyline that's real life takes form inside the movie.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, so you have a big cast of characters. You have Adrian Brody, who is a director of the film that they want to make of this play, and he narrates some of it. And so he's kind of aware, like the movie's mildly self-aware of what it is.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but really, I mean, Sam Rockwell and Saoirse Ronan together, they're because she's like newbie, like just a like entry level constable, and he's inspector, and they get paired together, even though Sam Rockwell doesn't want to be paired with that. And so you have her, she's very bright, but she's also excited. And so she reads into things and jumps to conclusions.
Yeah,
like
I've seen a bit of
often.
the trailer. Yeah, when she's like, it's this. And he's like, no, it isn't. It's not that.
So, yeah. So I think if you've seen the play, you know what the movie is, but and you know what the reveal is. But yeah, I didn't know either. And so there was the whodunit. I think from a mystery angle, it works. It keeps you guessing enough, but it's also lighthearted. So it's not this absolutely, oh my gosh, this, what is it, spellbinding.
Heavy.
Yeah. It's certainly not heavy and dramatic like in that moment. I mean, there's some dramatic moments to it, and you feel some weight between the characters, but you have a lot of fun. And I think that's really what it came down to, is that I felt good while watching it. And it put a smile on my face when it ended, because it was like, you know what, I just had a good time watching all of these characters and what they bring collectively to the presentation.
Yeah, it's had a limited run here for a while. It's been getting mostly good reviews. It's not one I've had a chance to get out to go and watch, because the world kind of shut down on this side of the pond. We obviously lost our queen, and then we had to have the procession, and there's the funeral. We have a new bank holiday, just those ones off, coming on Monday, and most cinemas aren't opening till Tuesday. So I had planned to go and watch it, but sometimes life throws a spanner. But I love the cast. I'm a huge fan, actually, of Adrian Brody. I think ever since I watched The Pianist, it was one of the best performances I've ever seen anyone, and I just can't imagine anybody doing it as good as he did. And then I like him in action as well, because I'm a big fan of his Predators movie. I thought he was really good in that. So I'm excited to see him, particularly with Saoirse, just from the little clips I've seen. Looked really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, I hope you get to check it out soon, because it is. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Nice. Cool. Okay, this is another old one. We've been watching the Cobra Kai. It's really popular at the moment.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess I'll dip into a bit of news just this week. Cobra Kai, I guess we don't know for sure, but people are guessing that Sony are doing a movie to wrap up the series. They haven't said it is, but there's a new Karate Kid movie coming, and that would be the only logical thing to do. Kind of give it a bit of budget and finish off with the last season, that tournament arc, which is really cool. So I mentioned last week, I think, that the next Karate Kid is coming to Netflix, which it is now, at least in the UK. So we stuck that on last night and had a watch of it. And I remember when it first came out, critics just poo-pooed it, they panned it. And there are bits in this movie where, like, some of the martial arts is just bad. It's like watching Miyagi having to fight a dude that's taller than him. So they have to create a martial art to make him bend down. So Miyagi is an old dude still trying to do like a really low spinning kicks. And I was like, wow, this really kind of fits in with the adults doing martial arts in Cobra Kai now. It kind of fits in the bad sort of martial arts that isn't quite good, but you love it because of the cheese and nostalgia. Now this has Hilary Swank as the young teen. And I gotta say, this was loads better than I remembered it being. I was just like, this has so much more heart. There's storylines in here that I just wasn't expecting. It starts off with them respecting the Vietnam War with Miyagi there in his suit, and then he kind of gets roped into looking after or trying to look after this young Hilary Swank daughter who's lost her parents. So she's grieving. She doesn't know how to respond. We get the people at the school that are the bullies, kind of. They remind me of Nazis, actually. They have like this emblem on their shoulder. The bad guy that plays the leader of the bad guy is classic bad guy. You've seen him in Starship Troopers, that kind of thing. You just know there isn't much fleshing out there with these characters. He's just bad for the sake of bad. But the heart of the story comes with Miyagi doing his training stuff again with the new Karate Kid. And it's believable that she knows how to do martial arts because there's been a history and an origin there that she's done some stuff already, because she'd learned from her father. Her father learned from his father, and his father learned from Miyagi. So there's this whole really nice loop. It was nice to see them interacting that way again. And then they kind of go to this place where he teaches her some cool moves and how to control her anger. And that's where you get to meet the monks. And I have to say, the majority of the film that's with them at the monks are quiet, but also hilarious and funny. And the heart of the film is there with them. I was so surprised. I was like, damn, I really am enjoying this. So when it comes to the martial arts, I was like, it's a bit throwaway, which is funny because it's meant to be a martial arts film, but it isn't. It's more about a young girl coming to terms with the loss of her parents, Miyagi coming to terms of the loss of his loved ones from the war, a grandmother trying to come to the loss of her daughter. It's all about loss, and then conquering fear. You get the martial arts, and you get the story of this is the meaning of what it means to control yourself using martial arts, what martial arts is actually for, the real meaning behind that. And the best lines come from Miyagi doing his, he has these little tidbits of wisdom that are always in a question, frustrating until you understand what it means. And that plays itself really well in this. This was so much better than I expected it to be. Definitely better than Karate Kid 3. I think the next Karate Kid, because you have Karate Kid 1, 2, and 3, and then you have the next Karate Kid. And I'm not even going to talk about the Judo Kid. I don't know if that's why that's even in there.
I'm gonna have to rewatch this. I honestly, I believe the last time I saw this was when it came out.
Yeah, I think that's probably the same for a lot of people. Yep. Yeah. I really want Hilary Swank to come and do like a little cameo. It would be great if she was in the movie, just came back for that little bit. Kind of connect all worlds. Yeah,
and we've seen it with so many other characters through the series. So I think it makes sense if they could get her to this. That would be sweet.
I know fighting has gotten even better. If she went and did $1 Million Baby, didn't she? And she was great in that. So yeah,
nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, good to know. The next movie on my list is not a happy movie at all.
Right.
This is it's weird to put it on the best thing that I watched list. It's really good as far as a film execution goes, but it's also one of these movies that I don't know if I'm ever going to watch again. I saw it at Sundance. It's called Speak No Evil, and it just came to Shudder.
Ooh, okay.
Have you had a chance to see this yet?
I haven't seen it, but I have heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. So, overall premise: these two families meet while on holiday, and they click, they hit it off, they spend a bunch of their holiday time together. Months later, one of the families invites the other family to come and stay with them at their house. So this is they're in different countries. So the family decides, after a little bit of hemming and hawing, they finally decide to make the journey, and they go.
I'm sorry, they're doing what? Hemming and hawing?
Yeah. Umming and erring.
Yeah.
Does that help?
I don't know what hemming and...
Yeah, they're hesitating. They're going back
Sorry.
and forth. They're waffling
I'm
in their
just teasing,
decisions.
Chris. It's fine. Move on.
No, I want to make sure you understand my American colloquialism.
Sure.
What? Yeah, whatever. Okay, no. So they finally get there, and then this absolute discomfort happens, and the interactions between the couples and the family are just so like not right. Like you're just like, I feel the tension. I see things wait, what? And then the character decisions that are made are baffling to me.
Okay.
And it's not just one. It is like progressive throughout most of the movie. And even when one thing happens and these characters decide to return to a place, and it's like, no. See, the reason I don't even want to give it away.
Did you see it coming?
The reason? Have we gotten the reveal at that point? I'm trying to remember if we had the reveal at that point, because there's a reveal that happens, right, and it's kind of like a, whoa, wait a minute. That's not okay. And so that part of it, totally unexpected. Like I may have suspected portions, but not the full picture. And then the thing that like it makes it very difficult to watch. Like you're uncomfortable the whole time. I mean, it's tense. It's like unnerving. But there are some then character actions in the final climax of the film that it kind of defies like reason. And yet I can kind of see it taking place in reality. If you were placed in this situation and it's completely unexpected, or you are ill prepared, which most people would be ill prepared, still though it's hard to wrap your head around, like because you can't put yourself in the situation. And so I know I'm being very vague in this, and it's probably kind of frustrating to listen to, but it's just know that this is one of those movies that if you want to see a very well-made, tense horror thriller, and it's not like slasher horror, just like it's horrific of what is going on, and you don't mind being just put into the bell jar and disturbed with the bleak outlooks.
All right, so I do struggle with these type of films. I like horror and thriller and tense films when the outcome is worth sitting through the mess.
See, and that's where it's like, that's why I would never watch it again, because it's kind of one of these movies. There was another movie that came out. I think I saw it at Sundance either this year or last year, but it's now on, I believe it's Netflix. And Pooh, I'll have to look back through to see what the
Pooh.
That wasn't the tie-in. But there was another movie where it takes place in Australia, in the outback of Australia, and this couple is kidnapped. Yeah, and the movie just spirals and descends into just darkness.
Not the Hills Have Eyes,
and almost like that. Yeah, but you always have this glimmer of hope, like there's going to be some redeeming moment. Our hero is going to be able to rise above this or rise through this, or something is going to be, and in that movie that I'm thinking of that was on Netflix, that doesn't happen. And so it's, you know what I mean? Like, even though the execution, the movie might be really good, because of the way it leaves you, at least for me, it's not something that I want to watch again.
Yeah.
And I think especially because this movie, The Speak No Evil, it continually gets darker and darker as it goes along. Whereas if you take something, and somebody had mentioned this in my comments, and it like I instantly was like, oh, yep, no, I totally get it. Funny Games. Funny Games is one of these movies also that it's not really a hopeful movie. I mean, the end is not, you know what I mean? It's that spiral down into darkness also.
Yeah.
But with that one, I've watched it a couple of times because I think there are moments in it that have some lightness to them, if that makes maybe that's just Chris's twisted brain too. I don't know. But anyway, Speak No Evil is on Shudder. It is horrifying, disturbing, and will probably gnaw at your soul, and you may not even like it. That's the other thing, that this was really good, and I don't. Yeah. Watch at your own risk, but if you're into something, if you need something that is just dark and despair, full of despair, then there you go.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure about that one.
I know. Totally get it. Get it.
Okay, cool. And talking about something that was quite bleak, but was a treat to watch. Cyberpunk Edgerunners is a new anime that dropped this week that is based on the world from Cyberpunk 2077, from a game that I'd waited 8 years to watch. And then when it launched, for me, it was very disappointing because the world didn't feel fleshed out. There were places in the game that I went to that just felt like I should be able to go to the shop and there should be a person that greeted me and had some sort of dialogue. It was very empty. The NPCs were walking all over the place, looked like they weren't programmed right, like walking into the wall. I was in cars and I would literally fall outside of the cars. Those are just some of the bugs. I encountered massive game-breaking bugs. And the reason why I mention all that is because there's definitely a gatekeeping aspect to the game. People so jumped on my review and you don't know what you're talking about. You haven't played the game. It was great when it launched. Like, hang on a second. If somebody's experience of the game was terrible, and just to put a caveat on that, the game was so broken that Sony took it off their store, stopped it from being sold, and offered people full refunds. That's a thing that happened. Coming to the anime, I thought it was blooming brilliant, to be very British. Blooming brilliant.
Blooming, yes.
Blooming brilliant. Rather, yes. It was a nice cup of tea. I do say so myself. It was a really great British full English tea. Let's get back into anime as I've spiraled off into nonsense. 10 episodes, 25 minutes a piece, so about 20 minutes a piece, intro, outro, take that apart. I've seen people comparing it to the second best anime this year compared to Arcane being the best animation series they've seen this year. It's that good. And I think I'd agree with them. The animation style itself is beautiful to look at. The storyline, in conjunction with the world that they set in, is the world I want to play in. And since then, Cyberpunk 2077 has jumped to the top of the store again, and people are now playing the game again. And it's been a full, I think, over a year. Well, I can't remember how long it's been since it's launched. Enough time has passed that they've had so much patches that the game is apparently now much better, that you can go into it and enjoy those characteristics. And I may go and do that now because I'm so immersed into that world. The storyline is where this is going to hit you emotionally. And I was so surprised at how far they were willing to go with the story and what they could do with it, because it's a one-time watch. It's a single arc. Everything is done and dusted at the end with these characters. It does narratively fit into the world. I thought maybe it was a standalone, it was separate. It was just a separate time. It is a separate time, but not actually that far apart. There are characters that you come across that will weave in and out that you've seen in the game. However, if you've never played the game, you don't need to have played it. You will absolutely understand what's going on. Remember, I keep coming back to you, Chris, on different reviews. Be willing to kill your darlings. Bring tissues.
Oh, really?
100%. I was so surprised at how far that's why I started talking about something that's bleak. And yeah, they go for it. It makes sense to the story. It's absolutely accurate. The action is phenomenal. You love watching every bit, but you also hate it because you know what's coming.
Could you see this this story working its way into the game at some point, or an update of the game?
It'd be awesome. I think they might have put something of the game in it.
Okay.
And there is a character that you can fight against that appears in the anime and in the game. So there is a nice crossover. I could see them even doing spin-offs of characters that are in the anime with separate individual arcs, but I don't think they should definitely try and force a sequel, because it would undo everything that sometimes you get sequels and stuff that undo the emotional impact of what has happened, and that's not what I want. Even though I want all the characters that I've kind of fallen in love with to be okay, that would weaken the story. Then it wouldn't stand on that hill. Which I remember we did this and we were brave enough to do this. Don't do that. It's a really great time. It's fantastic.
Nice. And that's all out at once? I mean, the whole season dropped. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Right on. Fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
So what's next on your list?
So this is a recommendation from you.
No.
A couple weeks ago, you told me, you're like, this was the best conversation I was telling my wife. So Ruben, a couple weeks ago, Ruben was, or maybe last week even, I don't know. Ruben and I were messaging back and forth, and he's like, "Hey, have you seen Wedding Season?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that Indian rom-com on Netflix." And he's like, "Huh?" He's like, "No, it's on Hulu." And I was like, "Huh?" And
what is happening?
What are we talking about here? So it's the one Ruben was talking about. Well, first let me go back. The one on Netflix, the rom-com Indian movie, totally worth seeing. So just a little caveat, go check that out, because it is fun. But the series that Ruben was talking about dropped on Hulu, and it is a British murder mystery crime thriller comedy.
Good.
Yeah. It stars Rosa Salazar, and it takes place most of the time in Scotland, which is like taking it way up for me.
It ticks all your buttons.
Exactly. But the other thing that I loved about this series, just from a technical standpoint, is that they dropped all of the first season at once.
Nice, right?
Hulu doesn't normally do this, but
Nice.
they did it this time, and I was like, sweet. So we've casually watched it over the last week. We watched a couple episodes, had some other things that I had to watch, so we just we set it aside, did that, and came back to it, and we finished it up on I think Thursday night. And the mystery angle of this, I was engaged in. Like the premise, we have this guy and his friends who go just through the wedding season of, like, I guess the early or late spring to maybe early fall, that summerish period there. Think 4 Weddings and a Funeral. Really. I mean, think that movie where you have this group of friends who just go from wedding to wedding to wedding to wedding, and you get to see some of the weirdness that happens and the dynamics between the friends at these weddings. Well, this dude, he's like a single guy he's lovelorn. He's looking for people, or not looking for people. He's looking for love.
Yeah,
he
is, yeah.
connects with Rosa Salazar's character, and they hook up. But the problem is that we learn from the very beginning of the series is that she's engaged and getting married to somebody else. And then everybody at her wedding, this is like right at the very beginning.
Yeah,
right?
it's not spoiler. That's the premise. Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody at her wedding, in her wedding party, dies except for her. And so obviously she becomes the main suspect, and then it's this thing. Yeah, exactly. And so the story of why, the chase of that, the guy who hooked up with Rosa Salazar, I mean, he begins to like her. But then now he's mixed up in this whole thing, even though he doesn't know he is and doesn't mean to be. And then you have the comedy of errors as they are being pursued and trying to figure out what happened. And there's some of it where not every single moment in this show clicked for me. But on the whole, Like, I was very engaged. It moves really quickly. I think the episodes are like 35-ish minutes,
they're not
maybe
long.
40 minutes. Yeah. So it's bingeable totally. And like the whole time, I think little bits here and there of the arcs are predictable, but I also find myself, I'm rooting for some of these things to happen also. You know, that I want it to go this way. And then sometimes the story will subvert that and it'll say like, not yet. Or no, we're not going to do what you think we're going to do there. And so they'll twist some of it. And some of it is like, especially in the finale, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. There's
a nice subversion of expectation. I really like that about the show. It was quite clever. Yeah.
Yeah. I just had fun with the story. And I think part of it too is that it's a great casual watch,
I agree.
but it's more engaging than just a casual watch. It's not something that I would say, you know what, if you just put this on and you scroll through your phone or you're doing some
it's
other
not a
things,
throwaway. You want to watch it, look at the screen. Yeah,
but it's an easy watch, right? I mean, I found myself engaged. The comedy works, the banter back and forth between the friends. I mean, it's witty, it's quick, it's snarky at times, you know, and it just,
I think it helps that I wouldn't say that I have a crush on, but I have a crush on the character of Rosa Salazar. I just find her so fun to watch, the witty, crazy banter. And I think it only works because he offsets that against her, because he's quite plain and reserved and totally in love with her, but willing to do these crazy things because he wants to be with her. So that kind of clash of worlds works really well. So that relationship I found myself rooting for the whole time, even though I'm not sure whether I can trust her, whether he should trust her. Like there's this, is she or isn't she, which I think works well to keep the mystery. Like you said, the pacing was quite good. The bad guys are quite formidable. You do wonder how they're going to like survive from one episode to the next. I also like the cops. Ridiculous cops, but the banter between them and even the relationship that's kind of on and off with them is really good. Yeah, really fun. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did. I'm so glad that you recommended it to me. So if you have Hulu, or I don't know if it's Disney, I think maybe in UK, is that where it's on?
Yeah, Disney. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So totally worth watching. 8 episodes, I believe.
Yeah, 8.
And so there you go. Cool.
Nice.
You have anything else on your list?
Yeah, Netflix dropped another anime. This time it's a movie called Drifting Home, based from the creators that did Your Name and Penguin Highway, which I'm a massive fan of. Both of those are excellent. Now, I would say both of those films are better than this one, but if I tell you the synopsis, it'll be hard for you not to want to watch the movie. So a bunch of kids are transported with a whole building into the ocean. And then the building is basically their ship. They have to fend for themselves, find food, and figure out how they got there and why they got there. And I'm like, I'm sold. I am in. What is that? That's so weird. Then the anime has the audacity to be about death. And so, yeah, it tackles the memories of some of the kids, the experiences of one particular person, the grandfather that 2 of these kids are involved with. One, this young girl, she was kind of seeing the grandfather as her surrogate father because of like past hurt relationships that she's gone. And so he kind of takes her under the wing, which means that his actual grandson, they become sort of best friends. And so the loss of the grandfather plays a big part as to them exploring what it means, what death means. And that is like a big part of the theme. So in amongst the adventure of them slingshotting from one building to another in the ocean, trying to get the crisp packets from vending machines, and there's a kind of supernatural element to it as well, which plays really nicely into it. And the visuals are great. The score is excellent. The voice work is fantastic on English and dubbing. So if you don't like to read, they've done a really good work with like kind of the voice actors that they brought in to do the English. It's 2 hours. I think it's a little bit long. Like, I think they could have shaved some time off because there's a bit of exploring there that I didn't think they need. But when you get to the last half an hour, man, it's just a ride. It's full of the adventure. But you're so invested in the characters because they've spent all that time of these kids exploring about death, and you really feel for them. You know what they've gone on. Really, really fun. Really enjoyed this one. It's good. It's very good.
Outstanding. Yeah, I had it on my list. I didn't get an opportunity to check it out. But I'm going to keep it on my list though to see. It's surprising that it has that emotional.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. It was like a family viewing. We sat around the projector, chucked on, wife, 2 kids, and we were like, it's the sort of movie that I don't know. I think it's safe to do at home. That occasionally you speak while the movie is on. We don't just go silent. We'll have guttural responses like, no, don't do that. I was like, we know where this is going. I wonder if that, and we kind of talk to each other a little bit while we're watching. And then there's silent moments where it's really like it's tense or there's emotion in the moment. And you're like, no, that sort of effect. And that's a wide age demographic then, from 17 to 44. That's us. So it's interesting. I think it's a good one for the whole family.
Nice. Wow. What a great. Okay. Sweet.
Yeah.
Cool.
Did you have anything more?
I don't have anything else. No. How
okay. I've got one more anime that dropped this week. It's just been an anime week, which I love because we're big fans of anime on the Ruby Tuesday. This won't be for everybody. It's not everybody's cup of tea. In fact, it's a very raunchy anime that kind of belongs in the 80s. And if you're like me, you feel like you belong in the 80s. And also probably not something I'd watch with my parents around, that sort of anime. It's called Bastard Dark Fantasy. Let me get it right. Metal Dark Fantasy? No.
Heavy Metal Dark Fantasy.
Heavy Metal Dark Fantasy. Now, we had the first 12 episodes drop recently, just a few months ago, in fact, and the next 12 have dropped, completing the story. Now, what I like about the whole premise of this is we kind of have a Lady Hawk storyline. You've ever watched that old 80s film? Yeah. Where the guy turns into the wolf and she turns into a hawk, but they can never quite meet. Here we have a dude who is a young kid, and this evil demon soul is shoved into him, and the demons revealed his persona is humanoid, and it's really hard to describe. And so you have this guy that is normally evil and bad, but because he's got a kid's soul inside of him, he starts changing and exploring what it means to be good. So the way he reacts to some of those minions that have been around him that are in love with him is the strongest, most powerful evil wizard that there's ever been. And his name is Dark Schneider. So you can imagine like the visuals that it evokes is exactly what you expect it to be. But then when he gets a kiss, he turns back into the boy, and the boy has his own minder, and the minder is also in love with the boy. But there's so many things that this you shouldn't show that it does, and it's not afraid to. It doesn't really show it because there are strategic moments of cloth and loincloth and things that when it comes to nudity and stuff, it will show what the person is doing but not show it, so they get away with it. Then you have the crazy metal soundtrack, which works very well for the sort of 80s nostalgia craziness that this anime is. The animation itself looks great. It's not afraid to do gore and have bodies explode. It reminds me of some of those dodgy anime series that people love and have a cult following. I found myself kind of enjoying this, which is why it's on my best thing I watch, because it's so crazy. It knows exactly what it is. So it's a type of hero anime series where everybody will say their move before they do it. I'm using Sun God chants, and now you will know the full extent of my power. And then the other person will be like, yes, but I counter with the devoid black hole moon dragon attack. And that's what it is. And it's so stupid, but it feels like it's a parody of all anime because it has it has all the quirks of everything that is bad about anime all shoved into one anime, and it feels like it's 100% done on purpose. So it's funny, over the top, raunchy, probably sexist, probably some people will be like, you can't do that on anime. Well, they did, and they can, and they've gone for it, and they've said, here it is, enjoy. Definitely kind of a cult following for this one. always interested to see what people's reactions are to this type of stuff, especially in this day and age. I thought, wow, fair play. You're quite brave doing that now, and I respect that.
Nice. I still have to see the first part. So maybe now that all
we'll
of it's
see how
out,
long
like
you last. I'm expecting a text, Ruben. What is this nonsense?
Well, I like irreverent humor, you know, and some craziness like that. I think it'll depend on if I can get engaged in the story enough to hold me to want to watch all the way through.
Yeah, there's enough of an arc there for you to go, okay, I want them to survive, because the bad guys are so cliche bad guys that they're willing to do everything. So the good bad guy you are rooting for, it's, yeah. Okay, last couple of things I wanted to talk about. Obviously had a lot this week. Wanted to talk about, in conjunction with each other, the two fantasy shows that we're busy watching at the moment. Game of Thrones, prequel,
Rings of Power,
and Rings of Power.
Oh, sorry, House of the Dragon.
Yeah,
that's
House
what
of the
I meant.
Dragon.
Yes.
All right, yeah. House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones series, and Rings of Power, Lord of the Rings series. I find it very interesting because I'm kind of going off House of the Dragon. I like it. I think the acting is good, but there's this time jumpy stuff that they keep doing that really takes me out of it. And I know that the next episode, there's going to be another time jump thing, which means that we're going to get rid of some of the actors that we've been really getting to grips with. I did have someone say to me that actually they cast the adult actors first before they cast the younger ones. So I guess that's okay. But every time we do a time jump, it just feels like I've lost some of that story. They never did that really in Game of Thrones. It wasn't the thing that they wanted to do. They just did a story and then moved on to the next season. There might have been some time in between seasons. But this time they're trying to cover so much ground and they want their characters to be somewhere, and felt like they needed to give all this prologue beforehand that we've had 4 or 5 episodes of. This is us getting you to the place where we can continue the story as adults, which is disappointing to me because I've really enjoyed especially the young actresses as playing those parts. And I think you can get it as close as you can, but it won't be the same. You will still feel that difference. But the Rings of Power, I feel like they've really been finding their feet now, kind of walking into the stride. Now, I love the first 2 episodes, but we had those niggles of what are they going to do with the story? Where are they going with it? And I really feel like they've found their footing. If you're watching, if you're caught up to date, you kind of know what they're doing with it now with Galadriel. And I'm trying not to do spoilers if you haven't seen it, like where the story's heading with the big bad. Also like the characters that they're spending time with. So although it's big, they're very contained in their locations and they spend a lot of time there kind of fleshing out characters, giving us time with those characters, giving us backstories. Even this one particular episode kind of helping us understand what the orcs are about and why they are like they are at the moment.
Oh, cool.
And you kind of get that. I really am enjoying both, but I am definitely leaning more towards the Rings of Power. Now I'll watch both because you can watch both and you can love both. But I'm surprised because I thought I like fantasy, but I've always had that slight reservation because I'm not sure where they're going with the Rings of Power. But for me, it feels like they're finding their footing. I'm not going to get into the gateway keeping of people. I've seen so many videos this week of people like, all the women in the leader roles in the Rings of Power and all the guys are weak and stuff. And like, I don't see it like that at all. Because the two hobbits are, the halflings are women and Galadriel's the lead protagonist, and the woman in the village that outmaneuvered all the men in the village and, holding up the orc head going, see, now you obey my authority. And they're just going off and one. I've seen so many people reacting badly to that. Doesn't bother me. Not in the slightest.
No, because I don't think it weakens the men in that. I think it just strengthens the women. That there seems to be the belief that if you strengthen one, you automatically weaken another, and that's not what I see there. Because you watch, and I wish I could remember his name, but the elf that's helping the human. woman. That dude, at least, okay, caveat here. I've only seen the first 2 episodes right now. I am behind in both series.
Oh, dude.
But by design.
Oh, you want to binge watch the whole lot. Fair enough.
Yeah, not all of them. Just I want to watch a few episodes together to really, you know what I mean?
That's going to be really fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So the elf, I mean, he's strong. He's powerful. He's, you know, anyway. To House of the Dragon, the time jump that I experienced, and I don't know, I can't remember which episode it first happened, maybe 2 to 3, again, because I don't even know what week we're on now. Yeah. It bothers me a little bit. Like I was having this exact conversation with my son yesterday. Like, you know, 2.5 years have passed in that first time jump that we get, where the king is now, his wife is married, or his wife is married. That made no sense. His wife is pregnant. And there had to be other things going on during this time, other political schemings, other, you know, and it makes me very curious at how long do they actually expect this series to go? Because what it feels like is that they don't expect it to go very long because they're rushing us.
Yeah, like one season's going to capture up those 300 years, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'm like, why would you do that? And I know that because we've seen Olivia Cooke as the cast, the adult cast of the king's wife, and I can't remember her name. Anyway, because I haven't watched it in a few weeks, my brain's all jumbled, and I've watched a ton of other stuff. But so I know a time jump is coming at some point because you have to transition from these characters being mid-teenagers to whatever age they're going to say they are. But I just didn't think that it was going to come so quickly. And again, I'm confused at why they feel the need to rush this along. Where, I mean, think back to the first season of Game of Thrones. I mean,
took a lot. Yeah, there was time. They spent time, and I think it was needed. Yeah,
it's world building, right? And this is the same thing. While we are familiar with this world, we're not familiar with this world. We're familiar with this world 180 years in the future or something, whatever that is. So let's not rush the story. Let's play out. Now, I'm okay if you need to skip ahead a little bit here and there because nothing happened. Okay, fine. But I think, I don't know. But that being said, I'm looking forward to a binge session on both of these. My youngest son, who is caught up now, I believe, on the Rings of Power, he may have been caught up last night because he had one more episode, I think, the current episode. And so he got home from work and he's like, yeah, no, I got to go. I got to watch this. So I'm excited. Like from the one episode to the next, he's like, oh, this is getting really, really good. And so just seeing him excited about it makes it want to watch it even more. But I have a good binge session coming.
Nice. That's going to be fun. The last thing I want to talk about is the state of Disney.
Okay.
There's a statement there for
yeah. Yes. Okay.
Tell me your thoughts before I go into grumpy mode.
Well, okay. So last week was the whole D23 exhibition type of thing where they unveiled a ton of stuff. And in our news section last week, Ruben and I talked a bunch about some of the new titles coming out. You know, some of the things we're really looking forward to. Some of them we went, why are you doing this? Whatever. The internet apparently, which shouldn't be a surprise, and yet it is every single time, is just all of the racists just came out of the woodwork to grumble and complain about a black Ariel. And which I saw a funny meme the other day and was like, I don't know what you all are complaining about. Ariel's always been black. And it showed somebody like in Microsoft Word going down in the fonts and it says Ariel black, which was just, it made me chuckle. And it was like, this is going to piss a whole bunch of people off.
For sure.
But Ruben and I'm sure everybody has seen it by this time, but this, I think it was a TikTok originally, a quick mobile video of these little girls seeing the the Little Mermaid trailer for the live action. Now, we all know my feeling on live action stuff. I don't know why they exist. They don't need to exist. I hate the live action adaptations for almost all of them. But this one's important because you see these little girls like squealing, like when they see. It's important to notate that these little girls are black, and they see when they hear, and then it shows Ariel, and they're squealing. She looks like me. That's like me. Oh my God. It just gave me chills. Just like literally to rethink that. This is why representation matters. That you have these little girls who forever, other than The Princess and the Frog, I think, have not had a black princess, a black character to look up. They haven't been able to see themselves in any of these movies. It has been dominated by just white characters. And especially when you think about the fantasy elements that we have, the fairy tale elements that we have in this, why can't they be other colors? Why can't they be other shapes? There is baffles my mind. But I loved the fact that we had this video exists of showing these little girls like crying almost out of giddiness, out of just shock and surprise and pure joy of seeing a character who looks like them. What shouldn't we all be able to look at a movie or some entertainment and go, "Hey, that's cool that there's a person in there that looks like me." Yep. Sorry,
100% agree. No, that's good. So that is a really positive thing from Disney. However, putting that all aside, I've now cancelled my Disney subscription. I actually went ahead and did it. I saw this. They were advertising to get like a really cheap, like $1.99 here in the UK for a month. You can join us now. Yeah, you can't get that if you've already subscribed, even if you cancelled and try and sign up again, just so you know.
Did you use a different email?
It's 100% location based, apparently. So I guess you could get around it using VPN.
Oh, but you don't want to have to use a VPN every time you access.
No,
to watch it at home, not like you're trying to, not like me watching Dairy Girls on Channel 4.
Exactly. I'm really worried about what's happening with Disney, considering the state of some of the shows. Now, we talk about live action a lot of times and how they're not needed. You just need to go. Disney have managed the unthinkable and united the internet and critics with, I was going to say Pocahontas. Pinocchio. It's like 136% and 130%. That's like, and all the ratings. It's just bad. And that's not that Tom Hanks is bad. It's just, it's a bad movie that didn't need to be made. Yeah. Especially when you got the other one coming out, which I think everybody's going to be on board for. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, if you remember when She-Hulk started, I watched the first episode and loved it. But every single episode since then, it's been getting progressively worse, and the CGI has been getting progressively worse. And I'm like, why does She-Hulk's eyes go one way and the other one goes the other way when she's looking at something? And why does she look like she's absolutely a cheap video game character now? The green, like. She doesn't look real. And then why are they... there are so many jokes in this that just don't land. And then for the length of the episode, 21 minutes, the last couple, you take out the 7-minute credits and the 2-minute recap, literally 21 minutes. So you're asking people to be invested in a storyline that's chunks of a skit. Because that's what they've set up their arc to be, and then every single episode at the end they'll give a little bit Easter egg and go, this is why you should watch the next episode, because this thing might happen. This week's one was a mask of some kind, and I know the internet was like, oh, that's amazing. The thing is, it's not funny. And I had not an argument, just a discussion with someone saying, I'm not the demographic for this. Fair enough. I'm not young ladies up to 48 years old or whatever who are lawyers and perhaps looking after superheroes. Yeah, very niche demographic. At the same time, this is a superhero series whose cousin is the Hulk, who they mention all these other characters that is kind of a stepping stone into the next Marvel movies. It's always been the way. That's how they set it up. You think about all the other Marvel series, they've somehow connected to the universe, also had a wider age demographic, and their marketing for this one suggested that it was a wider demographic, not just for that specific niche. So I was like, okay, fine. Maybe I'm not the demographic, but it should be, the episode should be long enough for you to get into grips with. The thing is, there is no arc. None. What's the story in this series? So I'm taking Pinocchio, I'm taking Marvel, and I'm going, what is happening with the thing that used to be, it set the bar. The only thing that it's got going for it for me at the moment is Star Wars, which I'm looking forward to. Andor,
right?
Yeah, Andor, because I've seen the initial reviews. I'm going to be watching it this week, which I'm very excited for. Well, the first 4 episodes anyway. I've seen a few reviewers say there's no Easter eggs in this series. And you're like, why do you need Easter eggs to...
When I saw Rogue One in IMAX, they did an extended preview of Andor, and the director said that this is not fan service. We're telling a story here, and so right off the bat, okay, we're just gonna watch a Star Wars story, and I'm excited. Like the little scene that I saw between Diego Luna and Stellan Skarsgård. Within that, I'm like, yeah.
It's also apparently slow, which translates to, because I don't think people understand what slow is and what story building is. The first 2 episodes are literally that's just them building the story, and then 3 kicks in like an action movie. And what I've been told is that the action is like old style, real world explosions, which is why we're not getting. That's why they didn't film like with the screens. They did the sets, they built it. The more I hear about this series, the more excited I am. So for me, Disney at the moment is Star Wars. I'm unfazed by the new Marvel phase. See what I did there? Yeah. Because if I were to rank all the Marvel films and series that I've watched this phase, they are subpar. They do feel rushed. I enjoyed some of them. They're not awful, but compared to the previous seasons, phases that we've had, just feels aimless. They don't really know what they're doing. Every time they give us something, we're definitely doing Kang's universe with this universe storyline, the multiverse verse, but then we release another 2 multiverse movies that have nothing to do with that. And you're like, what is happening? What happened?
Yeah. No, and I think it's like if you look at the amount of movies or content that came out in the first couple of phases of Marvel specifically, compared to what we're getting now, there is so much content now. And I think it's being rushed a little bit. And I think we're probably getting oversaturated as well. That people they're going to bring about the Marvel burnout faster than they need to, because I think it used to be an event. We'd have 2 movies a year. And you were like, okay. When the announcement came, and you're like, I can't wait, and marked it on your calendar.
It really does seem like there's a quality drop. An example of a Marvel show, because I know you haven't watched Daredevil. I would love you, Chris, to watch like episode 1 of Daredevil, then watch episode 1 of She-Hulk, and kind of do a comparison of what the hell. Because there's a Marvel universe and storytelling and tight writing and very interesting. And this Daredevil is going to be in She-Hulk. And I know the fans are now just like, why? Don't do it. Don't put him in it, because it's not going to be the same. It's not going to carry the weight that it should.
I see. I totally agree with you on She-Hulk. I have no idea what the arc is. As I'm watching this, because I've watched, I'm behind, but I just watched the episode with Madison, and I got to tell you, I laughed because I thought she was ridiculous, and I thought she was like the actress just brought about this dumb, carefree character, and then
who's Madison? I think I've already blocked it out.
She's the perpetually drunk party girl who. My name is Madison. A Y and two N's, but not where you think. And and Wongers, and so it's just it.
I didn't mind her relationship with Wong. I thought that was quite funny.
See, that's what I liked. I thought that was. Nice. I have no idea. I think for me, this series. First off, it's a very casual series for me. I just kind of watch it whenever it happen to be. The mood strikes. I don't understand the very short length of episodes in a weekly format. That is, we are well past that as a society. So that makes no sense to me. I'm not looking at this series, and right or wrong, as it really having any kind of impact on the MCU at the moment.
Well, it definitely won't now because it's not doing anything.
Well, yeah, that's it. So it's like this casual little thing that I'm like, whatever. Okay, it's kind of cute. It's a lot of the jokes don't land for me. Some of them do. Some of it is very forced. The CGI is still very, very wonky to me. I don't know. This one though, like, I'm not invested in it, so I don't really care. That's the other part, that it's like, it's not so I don't feel one way or the other about it. That's the other. It's like I don't get, it doesn't upset me, but it also doesn't get me charged to watch more of Marvel stuff.
I mean, think about how you felt watching Loki though, or WandaVision, Yeah.
Oh, no. See, and I did. I loved those. I was fully engaged in that. And it was a different storytelling style. It felt like it connected more. Well, it did connect more, at least I thought with Loki, and then it didn't for a while. And so, maybe it's going to now. I
think with the Kang, it probably will. Yeah.
I hope so. But again, I don't know. And so I think, what am I trying to say? I'm still loving. No, I'm not loving. I look forward to the movies. I think that's the thing.
Yeah,
the series,
I used to want to be there day in, first showing. Got to be there. Now I'm like,
I want to, just so that it's not spoiled for me. That's really the biggest thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I got to say, you know what? And I don't know if I'm in the minority or not, but when they showed the trailer, when I saw the trailer for Secret Invasion, the series that is coming to Disney, it's a Marvel. I am like fully on board for this. If they can execute the show the way that the trailer made it appear, then I am. I mean, it was intriguing. It was kind of dark. It was actiony. It was.
That was the Sam Jackson one.
Yeah, and why can't I remember his name? I love him.
He's a great actor. I know you mean the Changeling guy.
Krennic.
Yeah.
Oh, he's so good. Like I'm really like yes.
That dry humor as well. It's really good.
Yeah. So I don't know.
All right, we'll leave it at that. So I just want to take us off on a tangent and talk a little bit about what's going on with Disney. Plus, they've got their ad version coming up of the platform where you can pay the same amount for watching with ads or pay more money. So.
Yeah, that pisses me off. That makes my blood boil there. But we've already talked about that a few times, so
we have.
I'll just leave it there.
Fine.
You can.
Yeah. That's everything that I've got on the best thing and rants.
And rants. Okay. Cool. Well, we are coming up in just a minute. You're going to have a time jump. You're going to have a little quick edit there, and we are going to talk to the director of an indie movie. Ruben had discussed it, brought it up a couple weeks ago. I had the opportunity to see it also. It's called Space Waves, and we're going to sit down with the director and just have a good conversation. So forgive the little quick edit here, but boom.
So we're here with Spencer Whiteout, the director of this fantastic new indie film, Space Waves. You can check it out on iTunes now. We're going to leave the link in description. in the description. That was a tongue twister. Leave the link in the description in the description. Nice. I'm very excited to talk about this. But first, I kind of want to say to Spencer, I felt like you were aiming this film at us because we podcasts, and there were moments in your film I was just like, hey man, that's a little close to home. Did you how long have you been watching? How long have you been planning? No, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm very excited to kind of talk to you about how and why and when, because it's very interesting to me that you've been filming this over a number of years. So can you just speak to us maybe about the creation, the inception of it, the thought process? What is your background? Because I know you kind of started way back when, and then it came into being, and little bit by little bit, it's become the thing that it is now.
Yeah, so I mean, the story is very long, but a short summary is basically that summer 2017, I started writing the film, and then then we did a bunch of pre-production from 2017 to summer 2018, and that's when we did principal photography. And so I was at Biola University at that time. And so I basically just enlisted a bunch of my film school friends, and we drove up to NorCal, up to Grass Valley, California, which is where I grew up. And we shot the movie up there. And there's an iconic radio tower in the film. And I wrote the film kind of based around a friendship falling out that I had in high school, as well as this radio tower that was in my hometown. And it was this place that I'd go to growing up. And it was just this amazing, perfect, like teenage escape that was way on the outskirts of town, and only certain people knew about it. And so when we went up there to film, the day we get there to film the scene, the tower's being demolished.
No.
And so that was a huge speed bump. And, not only was it our main location being destroyed, but it was also like my whole, childhood. And it was just devastating for so many reasons. But at that moment, the producer and I decided, you know what, we're still going to shoot the rest of this movie. Everyone's up here. We have all the equipment. We had raised about $10,000. And so we decided we were going to keep the script as it was, and we were going to just find another radio tower location later, if there even was one. We had no idea, but we were just kind of walking on faith at that point. And then it ended up taking us 9 months to find another tower. And so that was a big setback. And the new tower that we did end up finding was so much better, and it looked so much better for screen, and we were able to be much more prepared with getting professional drone shots coming in and coming out, and doing it right with like safety equipment and all that stuff. So it did end up working out, but it was one of those major challenges, just having to search and for 9 months in order to find another one. And people don't want you filming on radio towers, obviously. So it took forever to find one. And then from there we continued doing a handful of reshoots and re-edits and adding scenes to the movie, because it's about a podcast, and so we needed to show more of the podcast in the movie. So we ended up adding all these podcast montages where you see the Space Waves audience listening to the podcast, and that helped build out the world. And then let's see what else. We added narrations to the film because that wasn't the original plan. And so then we decided, let's bring the podcast to the forefront. Let's have the main characters, Marvin and Joey, kind of narrating certain scenes and just having their comedic, quick banter going back and forth. And so that really helped as well. I know I'm kind of jumping around a bunch, but then finishing out, we shot the last of the film in mid 2020. And so kind of the bulk of filming took about 2 years. And then after that, there was another 2 years of post-production. And so when you're working on a super small indie film, post-production takes forever because, we had to work, save up money, and then pay for the color grade, a few $1,000, and then save up, and then pay for the sound design and the score and so on. And so that was the main reason why the film took so long. And so it was a real test of patience, a real endurance race. And then once we finally did finish the film in summer 2021, we had a nice premiere in Los Angeles, and we rented out this awesome warehouse and like brought in, you know, projector and sound equipment. And we had like 3 nights, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And, you know, tons of friends and family all came out to support. And that was really, really cool. And then the journey's not over there, because then it's like, how do you get a small indie movie out there to the rest of the world? Yeah. And so then we spent the next year figuring out how to get it onto iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, YouTube, which is where it's available. Go check it out there. And we spent the time figuring that out, as well as preparing all this art and assets for them. That's what the distribution aggregator we worked with, that's all the stuff they needed. And then on top of that, it was like, we got to create marketing material. So myself and my sister and the producer were creating all this stuff, whether that be like this behind the scenes documentary that we made called Beast Mode, or, you know, we're dropping scenes from the movie. We wanted to do like giveaways, just gifts as well. So all kinds of stuff that goes along with making a feature film and making sure it looks professional and creating all the thumbnails. So it really is just a huge process, and going through it all the first time, obviously it took a long time, but I'm looking forward to like going through the next feature film and kind of taking everything that we all learned from this project.
Well, and it's crazy because you think like major studios, when they release a film, they have large teams. Like just your marketing is, you know, 30 people or more. And here you are, you and friends and family doing this. And so I think it's I think it's awesome to watch. I mean, truly just the grassroots movement and the personal touch that goes into every step of the way with this for you. You'd mentioned that it was like parts of the story kind of based on your personal you know, background and with friends and interactions there. But what about like the podcasting angle? Is that something that you guys, or that's really important to you, or is that just kind of like, oh, you know what, this makes it a good way to tell the story?
I think at the beginning of the process, it was kind of the latter, like you just said. It was kind of like, okay, the characters, they hang out on top of this radio tower, but like, what are they gonna do? Like, there needs to be more, like more to the story, because, you know, it is about a friendship breakup. It's about Marvin and Joey kind of wanting different things. And as they're getting older, you know, they're fresh out of high school, priorities are changing and their lives are going separate directions. And so we kind of was figuring, well, when I was in high school, or my best friend and I, our thing was skate videos. And so we were always making skateboarding videos together. And that was our kind of creative outlet. It was our hobby, our passion. And I was all for it. And, you know, obviously I'm still pursuing film to this day. And that's what got me into filmmaking, was making skate videos. And so we were doing that all through high school. And then as high school was coming to a close, he was moving on and he didn't want to be skateboarding as much anymore. And I was getting more and more serious about making skate videos and just making films in general. And so we started to drift apart because of that. And obviously we're young and we didn't know how to handle it. And so we just kind of swept things under the rug, and we never really had a conversation or too many conversations about it. And so a lot of just kind of bitterness and miscommunication and all that stuff just kind of boiled to the surface, and it was like a pretty bad falling out. And so with Space Waves, I needed the characters to have something that they were working towards that would be the catalyst for them to go separate ways, because one of them is more passionate about it than the other one is. So, you know, Radio Tower, I figured, oh, maybe they could be doing some sort of radio show or podcast. And then the podcast idea, you know, since it's new, it's 21st century, it's these young guys making a podcast, trying to make it happen. I figured that worked really well. And the podcast is Marvin and Joey's podcast is called Space Waves. And on their podcast, they're basically telling funny stories, and they're telling all these things about like the pranks they get into, all the shenanigans they pull off. And they're very comedic and very fun. And they've got a lot of chemistry together. And their motto is, in a town where nothing happens, we got to make our own adventures. And so that's how it was for me. And when I was growing up, it was like, we live in this small town. And so we were always frustrated with being stuck. And so we were always, going and adventuring, skateboarding out into different places and going to the river and just doing all these things. And I'm super thankful for it looking back, even though at the time, you're angsty teenager that's like, I just want to get out of my hometown.
Right.
Nice.
So there's a character in this, and I have several questions, but this one, let's focus on this one for a second. There's a character named Duke Skylander. Yeah. Okay. So now this dude is hearing that and knowing what this character is. I mean, he shoots skate videos. He's really into video production. Is there a bit of you in this character?
I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, there's a lot of me and the main character Marvin, and then also Duke. There's a scene where Duke is showing his buddies his like promo to his new skate video, and it's just like not that good. And it's really funny to see someone, Duke Skylander, is like so into it, and then he's like, "Oh, this is the best video," And then Marvin and Joey are just kind of sitting there like, "Oh my gosh, this sucks, dude." But like, how do you tell that to somebody, especially when you're that young? You're just like, "Oh yeah, it's a cool video, dude." I had a lot of those experiences growing up.
Nice.
Speaking for wannabe filmmakers with your knowledge now of making a movie, of the do's and don'ts, is there something you could say to those new filmmakers, not necessarily coming straight out of film school, but those that have been wanting to try it, but kind of have an understanding that it's not an easy task? What is kind of what should I do? How should I get started? Or are you now jaded and go, no, don't do it?
Oh man, this is a very big conversation, but a few things that come to mind off the top of my head. On a practical level, make sure you get your contracts squared away with cast, with crew members, with locations, with music rights, with all of that stuff. We actually did not do that right away because we didn't know. And ended up coming back to haunt us a bit. We had to get an entertainment lawyer to just get everything straightened out and be like, oh, what are the proper contracts we need? I mean, this is for us wanting to do things seriously, wanting to get the movie out on all these major platforms. If you're wanting to be professional about it, you need to make sure you're doing things the right way, and nothing is going to come back to bite you just because you could get sued for all this stuff. Also, we made an LLC to protect Andrew and I, the producer. I'm the writer director, and then Andrew Bear is the producer. So we had to make that's another reason why this took so long. It's like we made a legitimate business, so Space Waves exists as a business. So those are some things that like you might not think of right off the bat, but you need to make sure you look into that. The other thing as a writer-director is breaking down the script. So, I mean, you just have to know your story front to back, side to side. And so when you're going through the script, you need to be writing down motivations for each character. You need to be writing down ideas for certain scenes. You need to be coming up with option A, B, and C. Just in case plans fall through, because they usually do fall through on set and things change. I would also say don't be too stuck to the plan, because when you get to set, things change. And basically the plan is there as kind of a blueprint and a backbone. But a lot of times once you get to on set, you find like better ways to do the scenes in general and better ways to do the stories. So definitely be open to that and pursue that. There's always a fantastical idea of what the screenplay and what the story should be in your mind, but that is just a fantasy, because when you get to set, that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where the real film starts coming to be. So you can't get too lost in the fantasy of, oh, it should be like this like idealistic mindset. You just have to work with what you have. So those are a few things. Also, I would say, if you are going to make a feature film, you better prepare yourself for possibly years of hard work. And so that idea and that movie better be worth it. So, I always say to write the movie you want to see within the parameters of the story you need to tell.
That's good.
So it can't just be, oh, my motivation is I want to make a cool movie. Because at the end of the day, if every single thing goes right, that's all you'll have is a cool movie. You need to aim higher. It needs to be something that's going to really carry you through, something you're going to be passionate about. It needs to be about, I want to tell this story. I want to get this message out there. This is important. This can help people. And that's what we did from the start. And so when we had that as our motivation, that's what got us through this 5-year-long process.
So good. So talking about the pain and the long process, can you tell us at equal ends of the scale, what was the best day of shooting and the hardest? It's kind of a thing I always ask directors, and they always have an answer because they know, like, especially the pain part. I remember this one, the crane.
Yeah, that just came to my head immediately, of course.
All right, tell us about that.
Well, there was 2 days in general that stuck out as being the hardest. One was Scarf's auditorium. So at the end of Space Waves, there's a scene where they're all in an auditorium and they're premiering Duke Skylander's film. And it's a great scene, and you would never know watching the movie that was one of the hardest. And it was the hardest because we thought we were on top of things, and then the time was running out, and we didn't schedule it right. We didn't plan for getting enough audience reaction cutaway shots. So we were like cutting shots that we kind of needed. And then we were sloppy with, we're going to set up a whole lighting setup on this side of the auditorium, shoot a scene, or shoot some shots, and then we're going to go back to the other side. And then we realized, oh, wait, we need this at the other end again. And so we're burning away so much valuable time because we didn't plan right. And it was just sloppy. And so we're running out of time and we're cutting shots. And then that moment where we needed to shoot something back here again, then the DP and I were having an argument, and it was like getting pretty heated. And it was like in front of the crew members. And so it was really bad because the crew members are looking to you as a director and a DP and the producer to be this trifecta of professionalism.
Yeah, you guys
and
are the head,
creative.
for sure.
We're the head, and like we need to be the leaders. And so the crew is seeing all of us arguing and not being on the same page, and it was horrible. We joke about it now because it's funny, and obviously we're all good. And that was a big thing, was like the next day, it's like, okay, we all need to make up, and we all need to get on the same page again, take responsibility for like what went wrong and just move forward. But it's kind of funny looking back now, the DP and I joke about it, but like I said, I'm putting my foot down. We're doing this.
Oh no.
I said that, and it was like, it's just
That's
funny because it became this line, I'm putting my foot down. But I had to say that because he wasn't listening to me, and I was like, I'm in charge.
Pull on the card right now.
Pretty much.
I am the director.
So, so there was that, and then the other, and so that was like a very emotionally intense and relational difficulty kind of moment. And then the other tough one was Samson's lot. So in the movie, they are hanging out at like just kind of this abandoned school parking lot, and they're shooting videos of Marvin and Joy running around in a shopping cart, and then they're like encountering. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And they're encountering this homeless man that tries to like touch his junk, and then they're shooting him with a paintball gun and, all that good stuff. And that scene was so hard because like it was like almost 100 degrees, the dead of summer. And it was another thing where, you know, we didn't really know how to schedule it right. It was the scene with like the most shots. And then we're realizing, oh, shoot, if we shoot this scene, then the shadows are going to be different. And so consistency is off. And so you don't think about that when you're shooting a film. And it was like, oh, no. And so there was that. Then there was like one of our guys was out sick. So we were down a man. And then there was construction going on. And so Kelly, the sound operator, was getting super frustrated.
I know that feeling.
And she... Yeah, and she ended up like walking off set for a bit, which was like, but she came back and she had a really humble moment, and it was good. But that was like all this is happening, and then Connor, our DP, was like had a fever, and so he was like laying against the wall and like just like falling asleep, and so we had to have our second AC be the DP, and
wow,
it was so rough, and so that was one of those things where we were just defeated before we had even started, you know, and Andrew and I decided, you know what, we need to get pizza ASAP. We need to get a crew meeting and get people together on the same page again. And we did these things called hype speeches. And that was, we basically, it's funny, we had everyone sign up for a slot on the production days. And so like every day someone would be bringing a hype speech, and it would be something funny or something motivational or something heartfelt. Just to
That's so good.
Yeah. And it was awesome. And it really helped us. So we had to get together, have a hype speech, and reinvigorate the troops, re-energize people. And like I was saying earlier, it always got to come back to the why. You know, why are we making this film? This film is going to be important, and we are betting on the fact that this is going to impact people. And it already has done that. So so that's awesome. And then, you know, that day started turning around again, and we just had an energy boost, and we decided, you know, we're going to come together again. We're going to beat this challenge. And it's inspiring when everyone decides collectively, hey, we're going to hold each other accountable. We're all going to work hard, and we're going to come together for this common goal. So that's what we did there. And then I would say for the best day on set was finishing filming at the radio tower, because not only was it a big challenge, it was very scary going up there, and the platform on top they're sitting on isn't just a total flat platform. It's like an X. So there's big holes. There's 4 big holes on the platform that you have to like traverse.
And your actors were like,
but it was amazing. Yeah, they were all for it. They were like less scared than I was, because I was like, I don't like heights, and it was, but that was the best day, because when we finally finished, you know, it was just this amazing feeling, and we got to shake champagne bottles and spray champagne everywhere. And so I recommend that for when you wrap any film, get some champagne bottles, because then it really feels like you finished strong.
Nice.
It's celebratory.
That's very cool. So I have a question about the story, and you, like, there is so much fun that the story has, but there's also like this melancholy to it. And I mean, you touched on it, you know, just because it's a friendship that's kind of disintegrating as people are maturing, going their own ways and stuff. So you make a decision as the writer to keep it more realistic in this, versus than having like a fairy tale Hollywood-ish type of ending. What, what, just tell us maybe a little bit about the decision to keep it more towards the realism side versus going the other.
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot of inspiration from trying to fill a void, and it was like, this is the movie I wanted to see when I was in high school, experiencing this falling out. And I never had a movie like this, because they're either, well, I don't know, but like there's just so many movies in Hollywood where everything's wrapped up with a neat bow at the end, and like, oh, they have an apology moment, and then they get back together and they're best friends again. And it was like, oh man, there was this movie called Kings of Summer, I think. And I was really into that movie until the very end, where all of a sudden they are in the car and then they flip each other off and then they laugh and they're like best friends again. I was like, what? I don't know, man. Yeah, I'm going to diss that movie because it had these like, it felt so realistic and so good in the first half or the first, 2/3. And then Hollywood does this thing where they're like, oh, okay, we need to make the audience happy at the end again. And they'll sacrifice the integrity of the story just to get a happy ending. And it just doesn't resonate. It's not something, it's also just, I wanted to make a movie where people are going into the movie and then they're able to see their real life reflected in it, and it's able to be a comforting movie for them. Because when I watched that Kings of Summer movie, I was feeling the weight of the friendship disintegrating. And then at the end, it just brings it right back up again to like everything is fine and dandy. And I'm like, oh, well, okay, I guess I can't relate to this movie anymore because my relationships, my friendships didn't just get wrapped up nicely again. So I didn't want to make a movie like that. I want to make something real. And the ending is, without giving too much away, but it's very bittersweet. And so there's still some sadness there, but there's also some goodness. And there's hope in like new life seasons and new friendships and new adventures. And so that's kind of why I wanted to make it much more realistic and relate with people.
Well, and you still get the sense that they're going to be okay. It's not even though it's a very realistic thing, and I think that's great because it then gives us something to relate to versus oh well, all of my friendships when they disintegrate, they all wrap back up and everything is fine and happy go lucky again. But you do get the sense, as we see just the closing shot on the tower, or even in the fast food restaurant, where they interact there. I mean, it's not, you see hurt.
Yeah, and they meet again.
See hurt, but it's not antagonism there. It's just, we're kind of moving on. We're beginning to move on. And so it feels good. I mean, I totally get what you're saying about, you almost disingenuous at times because we're going to take you on this emotional journey and then negate the pain and everything that went through just to make it happy again.
Yes, yeah, definitely. And just because it's a sad ending, it doesn't mean it has to be a bitter
correct
ending.
Yeah.
No.
Going to stepping aside from bitter and sadness, and I'm going to bring it back to how on earth did you, which is my setup question. And I don't think this is doing spoilers because the dude's in the trailer. How does one go about getting Joe Rogan into your movie?
Right.
What's the story?
Well, it's like, man, people don't even believe this, but the truth is we did not even know who Joe Rogan was at the time.
Amazing. I love that. That's even better.
It's crazy, but I just wanted to write this character who was pretty obnoxious, and I kind of took inspiration from Rex from Napoleon Dynamite, who's the like karate instructor who just like thinks he's all that, and nobody can top him. He's just so alpha, right? So we just had the idea to have the number one podcaster be the Girthinator, and he's basically like this washed up like 80s action star. And it's funny because Marvin and Joey's Space Waves podcast passes him on the charts. So of course he has them on his podcast as like a guest thing. And he's just like super passive aggressive towards them the whole time. And like, it's just so funny, and it's funny to see Marvin and Joey out of their element and being guests on someone else's podcast. And so that scene is really great because, it turns out, the guy we cast just happened to look like Joe Rogan, and, Girthinator's taking shots on the podcast. And it's just really comical. But also what's amazing about that scene is that while the scene is comical, it kind of gets a little bit serious towards the end there, because, you know, Girthinator's asking them, what are the plans for the podcast and where are you guys going? And Marvin's like, oh yeah, we're going to keep going and all this. And Joey's like, well, I feel like we kind of did what we set out to do. And so then they're like, what? And they're having an argument on someone else's podcast live. And so it can get kind of tense. And it's really, you know, I love that in multiple scenes of Space Waves, we tried to bring comedy as well as conflict, sometimes even in the same scene, which is really tricky to do. But I think we did a pretty good job of that in a handful of scenes.
I wanted to talk a little bit about your two main protagonists, your actors. You released, for those that haven't seen the film and want to kind of get an understanding of what they bring to the table, you released a clip that there's no music. It's just them having the talk of kind of going separate ways. And it's, I was uncomfortable watching it because it was, no music. It's just visceral. It's raw.
It's like 4.5 minutes static.
And I was like, damn. It's like, so for one, you got to know your actors can do that. Because even the best actors, like the AAA actors, struggle with a large amount of dialogue, and then getting it right, getting the tempo right, getting the beats right as they need to respond to each other. So it's not just spouting off dialogue. You can still act it, but it can come off sometimes like theater, especially in those, because it's like if you're in a theater, there's a different feel to shooting theater or directing theater to actually shooting film. And I thought was, wow, this is a really great scene, great bit to kind of release. What went through your mind, and who are the actors? Like, how did you grab them? What's their relationship to the movie?
So there's like two questions there. Marvin and Joey. Andrew Gabriel plays Marvin, and then Rudy Pankow from Outer Banks and Uncharted plays Joey. And it's funny because this was his first feature film. This was everybody's first feature film involved. And this was before he did Outer Banks and Uncharted. So he definitely lucked out there. Pretty crazy, you know. And then Andrew Gabriel's like going on to do another film called Falling Stars, which went to Cannes, whatever you call it, film festival. Nice. So that's a big deal. So their careers are going forward, and that's awesome. They were actually close friends before the movie started, and they went to the same like acting studio and were learning acting together. And we initially had another guy playing Marvin, but then he dropped out. That was one of my childhood friends who I was super close with, and he dropped out kind of last minute, and that actually sent our relationship into separate ways for a couple of years because it's crazy how like meta all of this is, but yeah, that was rough. He bailed on the project, and he had his reasons, and we're all good now. But at the time, that was super rough. So then Rudy is still in the movie, and then we're like, Rudy, like, do you know anybody? And he's like, yeah, my great friend Andrew Gabriel, who I do acting with, you know, he can come on. So he came on. And so that was amazing because these two characters or these two people have such amazing chemistry as friends anyway. And then they come in and they're playing friends in the movie. And so it was tough for them, specifically in that scene you're talking about, the argument scene. That is actually my favorite scene in the film. So everyone should go check that out. Space Waves, the argument scene.
I can understand why. Yeah.
And yeah, they had so much chemistry, and so it was very real for them to be pretending and acting that, hey, their relationship is like ending. That scene in particular is my favorite for many reasons, but I love that there's like sections to it, because at the first bit of the scene, Marvin is like recounting this funny story that Marvin and Joey had, and it's a funny story, but it's also really uncomfortable because you're like, dude, he's like pissed at Joey, and you know he's pissed, but he's trying one more time to like bring back these fun memories. And Joey's just like kind of ignoring him on his laptop. Just like, la, 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 yeah, he's having none of it. And so So it's really uncomfortable because the water is boiling up, you know? And then he's like, dude, like, what's the deal? Like with the podcast, you act like you don't even care. And then Joey, you know, it starts getting to the conflict in the middle part of the scene where Joey's like, dude, the podcast is a dead end. Like, we need to move on. I don't want to just keep hanging around and messing around this rundown town. He wants to do have other experiences in life and move on. And he's trying to show Marvin that. And he is, a lot of people just think, oh, Joey's just this like one-dimensional like jerk or something. But like, it's really not true, especially if you watch the film back multiple times. Joey is very patient with Marvin and tries to drop many hints along the way that like, there's more to life than the podcast, dude. And so Marvin's just still not hearing that. And towards the end of that scene, Marvin is like, oh, okay, you don't want to do the podcast anymore. You just don't want to be my friend anymore. And Joey's like, dude, like, there's so much more to their relationship than just the podcast, but they're just disconnecting and they just can't see it from each other's point of view. And so it's really cool as the audience to be able to see, you can see both of their perspectives, but they can't see each other's perspective. And then as far as the shot selection, that was the one scene that I was like really adamant on. I want to do this one in a one take because I want to just trap the audience in a static tripod shot for 4.5 minutes. And there's the blocking had to be good and the framing. And so like you have like this gestalt happening where it's like Marvin, Joey, and then there's a mirror where Marvin is like looking at Joey from the mirror basically. So the composition of the shot looks really good. And sometimes editing can be distracting if you're cutting between things. And sometimes sometimes just letting things play out in real time is more impactful. And there was a scene in a movie called, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. I never remember what the exact title is, but that movie, there is a scene where I saw that done where it's just like a static shot for multiple minutes. And I remember seeing that and being like, oh my gosh, like it was this really emotionally intense scene where you're just stuck on the tripod. And it was like so uncomfortable, but in the best way because you're that invested in the film and in that conflict. And so I wanted to replicate something like that, and really happy with how that scene turned out.
And I think you did that a lot through the film. I mean, and hearing the actors is outside their real life chemistry coming forward. Like I didn't know that part of it. And so the thing though that was real throughout the entire movie was their emotions like felt real. It didn't feel like they were just acting. It felt like, no, we're elated at this point. And now we're heartbroken at this point. And so you captured that well from your actors to get them to translate that. So, I mean, kudos. Good job on that.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
For our audience, again, where can we find it?
Yeah, so you can find it on iTunes, Apple, Google Play, YouTube, and Amazon Prime.
Nice, you already got it on all those platforms. So good.
Yeah, I got it on all those. Check it out. Leave us a review. That really helps and goes a long way for these, small indie films like ours. And then be sure to check out Beast Mode, which is the Making of Space Waves documentary, and it's actually we've released it episodically.
Oh, cool.
But it's actually the length of like another feater. It's like an hour 45. Wow. And that was another project that like we were making the whole time, kind of behind the scenes, behind closed doors. We were making this epic, full length, definitive documentary about the making of Space Waves. And it started as something very like, oh, we'll make like a 15-20 minute like featurette. And then when all these conflicts happen, and in this interview right now, we've just barely scratched the surface of like the amount of conflicts and things that went down. Actors dropping, locations falling through, camera overheating, lady sexually harassed my car, getting physically chased out of
just throws that in there. Great. Okay.
No, I'm serious. Like the whole experience is unreal. So go watch Beast Mode: The Making of Space Waves. That's on YouTube, and you'll see us talk about all these stories. And then I'll plug one more thing, which is my podcast. It's called the Spencer Whiteout Podcast. I ended up making a podcast after we finished Space Waves. I'm like, hey, maybe I should make a podcast. And it's just me. And that was the thing, because before I was like, oh, I don't want to have someone on the podcast who's not going to be as passionate as me. And then I realized, I'll just do my solo podcast and I'll bring on different friends and guests every time. And so on that, the kind of log line of that is collecting experiences as badges, memories as treasures, and stories as wealth. And so on this podcast, it's very focused on personal life anecdotes, comedic stories, and it's just a fun show where we tell crazy stories. And so go check that out. And I don't know if there's anything else, but thank you guys for having me on. It's been awesome to talk with you guys in more depth.
Yeah, man. Thanks for your time. Chris, I can't see your face. Do you have any questions?
I've disappeared apparently from the video. I'm still here, I promise. The only question that I have really, Spencer, is what's next? What's on the horizon for you? As you've got your first feature film under your belt, now where do you go?
That is the question.
Sorry.
Thanks for asking me a live question.
Yeah,
man.
I know. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
No. So what's next is I'm really focusing on growing my audience through the podcast, and that's going to be an exciting way for me to do something I'm passionate about. I love storytelling. I love hearing myself talk. But putting together these podcasts is awesome because I'm able to be consistent with uploading regular content. It's an art form for me. I love putting together these conversations. This podcast is very, while it's comedic and everything, it's also very serious for me because it's not just, I get friends together and we just talk about random things. It's like I have bullet points of, okay, you're going to tell this story and then this story will lead into this story that I'm telling. And so it's all very planned out and it is a choreographed show, right? And so I'm very focused on building my audience there, which can then hopefully be later utilized and monetized, whether that be through, to try to crowdfund another feature film or to just put out something on my Instagram. Hey, come be an extra in my movie, So I'm just trying to build a network of people that are going to support me and support the creative work I'm doing. I'm also doing just writing more screenplays. Obviously, I've got a few that are one that's done and I'm very confident about, and then a couple others that are in the oven right now. And so we'll see where all that goes. I would love to make another movie as soon as possible. It's also just, it's not starting from square one because we've definitely learned a lot and, know how to proceed on many levels. But at the same time, every project is going to be completely different. The time in my life and the other crew and cast lives are completely different. So I was thinking about this the other day, and the way Space Waves came together really was a perfect storm of all these different people's situations and life seasons and everything coming together in that moment. And so instead of trying to recreate that same thing again, I need to see what are the pieces that I have now. And, same for anyone making a feature film. It's like really just analyze and figure out what are the advantages you have now in this season of your life that you can utilize to bring another movie to life. And it goes back to that thing I was saying about not living off an idealistic land and fantasy land of, it would be so great if all this and this and this would happen. It's like, look at the real life and figure out what works in the here and now. And also follow me on Instagram at Spencer Whiteout.
Nice.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, hey, Spencer, thank you so much. I mean, this has been awesome to talk with you. Thanks for allowing Ruben and I to both view Space Waves. I encourage everybody to go check it out. iTunes, Amazon, YouTube, Google Play. It's a fun movie. Support the independent arts because this is great, as my dog began to bark there. And That's great audio. Well, anyway, Spencer, thank you again so much. We appreciate it. And yeah, everybody, check them out.
Cool. Yeah, thank you guys. We'll talk again soon. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Spencer.
All right, and so we thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed our discussion. Hopefully, we gave you at least one or two things to maybe add to your list to consider some of the best things that we watched. We do appreciate you tuning into us each week. Ruben with the Ruby Tuesday, please head over, like, share, subscribe, all of his stuff. Me, Chris with Movies and Munchies, as a group, as a collective, as the duo, however we want to say it. You can tweet at us at Best We Watched. You can head over and get all of the audio, where we talk about the news, entertainment news, and also some of the things that are coming up in the next couple of weeks that we are really looking forward to. Those are in the audio only portion. We've linked links to that. That's redundant. Description below. Check the talking hard words, difficult, but hey, there you go. And also, we invite you to take a look at our Patreon opportunity, patreon.com/thebeardedones. We have on our individual channels. Yes. We've posted a couple of teasers, or not teasers. I mean, we gave you the actual videos of what we had posted on there. There's another one coming out this week that we had a lot of fun doing. It was back earlier in the spring. I think it's pretty entertaining, at least ridiculous, and gives you an idea of some of the craziness that we get up to. But we do invite you to go check that out, because by taking part in that, you help support the channels and really this show, and it offsets the cost of the production, which is there. So with that, we thank you. We look forward to talking with you next week. And yeah, that's it. All right. See you.